Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Becca Holland Show. Today I'm joined by Gerry Hussey, a performance psychologist and author of Awaken Your Power Within, and someone who's been helping people understand the connection between mind, body and energy for over 20 years. We talk about what really drives human change, why knowledge alone doesn't shift behaviour, and how fear-based thinking keeps the nervous system on high alert, and why true healing starts when the body begins to feel safe again. Gerry shares such simple, practical ways to interrupt them survival mode thinking patterns and to start living with more focus, and how to get more energy and feel more calm without the constant push that most people mistake for progress. If you've ever felt like you know what to do, but you can't seem to get the body to do it, this conversation will really help, and you'll see why now in a moment. Enjoy. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Gerry Hussey, someone who's spent over 20 years working in the field of human performance, psychology and transformational coaching. Known as the Soul Coach, Gerry has worked across elite sports, the corporate world, and with individuals who are ready to break free from limiting beliefs. He's coached Olympic and professional athletes, guided senior business leaders, and helped thousands of people unlock deeper potential by reconnecting with the mind, body and the spirit. Gerry is also known as the co-founder of Soul Space, an international speaker and the author of the best-selling book Awaken Your Power Within, where he shares his philosophy on overcoming fear, silencing the inner critic and living with purpose. What makes his work so powerful is his ability to blend science, psychology and spirituality into practical tools that people can use in everyday life. That was some introduction, but you deserve every bit of it. Every time I meet Gerry, I go away with a lot to think about, and I'm sure everyone listening to this will be no different. And you've said before that modern life can disconnect us from our souls. And in your own life, and I know you do this very well, how do you avoid getting sucked into that kind of repetitive, negative thought loop? I thought we'd start on that one.
Yeah, great question, Rebecca, and thanks for having me. The first is I don't avoid it. I don't think anybody does. I fall into the same pit traps as everybody else. I can be filled with anger, judgment, criticism, comparison at times, and I think that's to be human. But the work I've done over the years and the awareness that I've gained has allowed me to do one thing: fall into the pit trap, quickly recognize I'm in the pit trap, quickly recognize I'm the author of my own chaos, and then get back out again.
Geez, I love that you said that. Like, if Gerry Hussey's saying that, there's hope for us all, that, you know, it's like we're not robots, we're human, and it's important to acknowledge that because a lot of people don't.
No, absolutely. I think there's too many people selling us this idea that we can be in a certain emotional state all the time. To be truly human is to live in the human condition. And the human condition is ups and downs. It's fear, it's anger, it's judgment, it's comparison, it's self-doubt. It's all of those things. And none of those things are bad things. I always say there's no such thing as a negative emotion. All emotions are here for a reason, and there's invaluable information in that emotion. The only dangerous emotion is a suppressed or denied emotion. Too many people trying to be happy all the time. Too many people not willing to sit with an uncomfortable emotion. And then that leads this constant state of distraction, always on the go, always on a phone, always looking because we're afraid to sit still. It's in the stillness that we meet the emotion. So it can be an uncomfortable emotion. It can be an unhelpful emotion, but there's no such thing as a negative emotion.
And that's a very interesting one to explore on the stillness piece. And I think even the year 2025, there's more and more people not being able to sit in stillness or to still the mind. And it's a really interesting concept to explore because it's leading to a lot of people being in a really dysregulated state.
Of course, there's a short meditation that I do when I work with clients, and I'm trying to get them to understand the power of stillness. So we won't do it as a meditation for this, but I'll just tell the story. So if you're listening to this, just imagine that, and you can close your eyes for a second, just imagine you're standing in a lake and you have something really valuable in your hand, be it a wedding ring or be it something your child gives you, or maybe a wedding ring that your mother gave you, something of immense value. And you're just looking at it. And you're like, it's the most precious thing in your life. And then for some reason you drop it. And it falls to the bottom of the lake. Now, the lake bed is silty sand. And you're so desperate to find it that you start to panic. You start to desperately scramble around the bottom of the lake trying to find it. But as you're desperately scrambling, all of that silt is getting washed up. And as the silt gets washed up, now the water is getting darker and darker and darker. And for every moment you're splashing, moving, frantically working in there, you're actually making it harder to find. Now just imagine for a moment, just a moment, the sun catches your eyes. And just for that split second, the sun is so mesmerizing that you've no choice but to look at it. Now you're turning your gaze, your awareness and attention away from trying to find the thing that fell into the ground. And for that moment, you're just looking at the sun. And the sun is so mesmerizing that as you sit and watch it, you become perfectly still. The more still you become, the less you disturb the bottom of the lake. Now all the silt begins to settle back to the bottom. And as you sit there in perfect silence, looking only at the sun, the water has returned to a state of perfect clarity. The silt has returned to the bottom. And when you turn around and take a look at that crystal clear water, you can see all the way to the bottom and you see the ring you're looking for. The point I'm trying to make, Rebecca, is when we're in a frantic situation, desperately chasing something, we can't see the wood from the trees. We're so dysregulated. We're working from the hormones of stress, the chemicals of survival, unconscious programs. We literally can't even see what we're looking for. I've worked with golfers who, in the biggest golf tournaments in the world, literally couldn't see the hole in front of them. Everything's gone out the window. Stillness is one of the greatest gifts. When something goes wrong, people say, hurry up and do something. The opposite is what we should do. Be still and do nothing. Just for a second, just for a moment. So when we look at the way we're thinking, what we're looking at, what we're observing, the stories we're telling ourselves, in that moment, we're either magnifying our problem or we're magnifying the solution. We're magnifying a point of pain or we're magnifying a point of power. What I try to do is teach people and adults. In a chaos situation, that could be a pilot, it could be a surgeon, it could be an athlete. When chaos is all around you, you bring yourself into a state of calm within. So just because there's chaos externally doesn't mean that that has to be how we are internally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one that I think if you put a lot of focus on that, your whole life will change. Because even if you think of your gut instinct, the only way you can allow yourself to listen to that is when you're still. And it's even like when you have your list of pros and cons and you're desperately trying to make a decision, the decision often when you're still will just intuitively come to you. So there's so much things that we could solve the problem if we just slowed down. But a lot of us are allergic to stillness because it brings emotions that you've been avoiding for a long time.
Absolutely. People always talk about distraction. And I talk about the disease of distraction. I wrote about it in one of my first books. We suffer from a disease where we're constantly distracted, which means we're missing out on those valuable moments, our kids growing up, those precious moments that are gone too fast. We're missing out on those. But also if we stay in that state of disease or that state of distraction, we know that when the body holds chronic stress, it eventually gets physically ill. So the disease of distraction is where we're constantly on alert. And it's distracting us, as I said, not just from the presence and beauty of our life. It's actually making us ill. So there's two things in distraction. One is what distracts me. So we'll easily say phone, work, emails, Instagram. That's an excuse. Because we got to look beyond the symptom of distraction and look deeper and ask, what is it in me that needs to be distracted? When was the last time someone from Instagram came to your house and forced you to pick up the phone? When was the last time someone forced you to look at your emails? So we got to look, the phone is there, but it's only you that pick it up. What in you is craving distraction? What in you needs to be distracted? And it is an uncomfortable truth. And whether that uncomfortable truth is I'm not living a life in alignment with my soul. I hate my job. My relationship's in trouble. I'm not around for my children. We can either try run from those from the rest of our life, but we can never outrun what's in our heart. These uncomfortable truths come up now and sometimes they're painful, but they come up as pain that we can experience now to prevent us from feeling greater pain in the future when our kids are gone and moved out, and then you realize you were never really there for them. When you get the diagnosis, when you hit the crisis, and you realize that this has been building for years, and the signs and the symptoms and the signals were all there, but you choose to ignore them. So, for too many people, it takes a crisis or a diagnosis to wake up. Stillness, when we listen to our gut instinct and ask ourselves, what is really my life about? What goals am I really chasing? Whose goals were they anyway? Why am I comparing myself to others? And in this one short, beautiful life, why am I not giving myself the chance to go after the life I dream about? Who's really holding me back? And it's in those moments of truth. That is what the gut instinct is about. In my last book, I talked about we have two inner voices. The voice of the brain, which is ego, the thinking brain, fear, avoidance, avoid the pain. That's the chatterbox of the brain. And we have the deeper voice, which is the wisdom of the soul. And you can spend your entire life trying to convince yourself that the wisdom in the brain is more intelligent than the wisdom of the soul. And I promise you, it will never be. You have only one truth. And if you're willing to listen to your deepest whispers of the soul, you'll hear it. And everybody has the potential not just to hear the whispers of their soul, but to pursue a life that is more in alignment with their soul.
That's quite as you were speaking there, I almost felt like it touched on pain points, because I think so many people are living that life. They're living out the life of looking for the distraction, avoiding the emotion. And it's very easy for your life to just pass by you. And I always think to ask myself this question: what would the version of me in 10 years' time be saying to me now? And I tell you, that gets me thinking, because I think, wow, imagine, you're looking back at your life thinking, wow, now you're criticizing your life that it's not good enough, but in 10 years' time, you'd kill to be back where you are now. Jesus, it'd wake you up and shake you when you do that exercise. And for someone that's right now, they're listening to you talk and they're thinking, oh my God, they're either crying or they're a bit nervous because they're saying, I am living a life of distraction and misalignment. For you, how did you get into this life now where you're living with huge purpose? Like, what were the first building blocks? Because I know a lot of people that listen to this are highly dysregulated. They are stuck in the rat race. They do feel very tied to that they can't get rid of the distractions.
Yeah, well, ultimately, my story is I had 2 suicide attempts before I was 14. I was living in a constant state of dysregulation, fear, anxiety, panic attacks, doctor to doctor to doctor, blood test after blood test after blood test, brain scan, and everyone's saying you're perfectly healthy. And it wasn't until a very nice paediatrician who I actually became very good friends with, and an exceptional guy who has helped and changed the lives of lots of kids. But just for me at that time, he didn't understand. And he said to my mother, when she was saying, please do more scans, please find out what's wrong with my kid, he said, you've taken up enough professionals, people's time with this. And she said, well, what do you think it is? He said, if we want my honest opinion, he's making all this up so he doesn't have to go to school. I will never forget. That was like a kick in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so useless. Why am I making this up? Why am I bringing this pain on my mum? Why am I doing that? And thankfully, Rebecca, at that moment, for a reason I never understand, for the first time in my life, a different voice spoke inside me. And the first thing the voice said was, how dare he say that to my mother? Nobody treats my mother like that. And then the second voice was, and I'm going to be a bit crude here, because I never really used bad language. But I said, and I'm not fucking making this up. It was the first time in my life, Rebecca, I backed myself. I knew the truth. I'm not making this up. I wake up in sweats. I wake up anxious. I know how miserable I feel. Sometimes I'm eating food, I can't taste it. I'm not making this up. I left that office at 14 years old saying to myself, for as long as I can not commit suicide, my life is going to be about one thing. Finding out where this gap is, this thing that he can't see. Call it mind, call it soul, call it anxiety. I'm going to try to find out where that is. At 15 years old, I discovered a book by Deepak Chopra that changed my life. And he talked about the body and the nervous system being this moving, changing thing, that nothing is static. And he talked about regulation. I'd never heard of the word regulation. And how certain things we think about, foods we eat, can up-regulate or down-regulate. And I suddenly, because I thought I was born with this dysfunctional brain and there was something wrong with it. And now this guy was telling us that would work, and the work can be hard. Whether that's therapy, yoga, meditation, cold water immersion, changing your diet. He was saying there's a chance that you can change this. There's a chance that there's a life for you beyond fear, beyond anxiety. And I said to myself, if there's even the smallest chance, I'm going to take this on. And by the time I was 17, I was thrown out of a geography class because we were meant to be studying Oxbow Lakes. But inside the geography book, I had a book on brain chemistry. And I was reading how our thoughts and emotions change the chemistry. And the teacher threw me out and said, don't be filling your head with that nonsense, it's not important. I said, no, it is important. It's about brain chemistry. And he said, that's not on the curriculum. Get that nonsense out of here. So how did I learn this? By asking bigger questions. What is the nervous system? What is the gut-brain axis? What is the blood-brain barrier? What are synaptic connections? What are neurons? How do emotions impact hormones? How do emotions change your biology? And I suddenly realized that physical health and mental health are the same thing. Everything you think of sends a cascade of physical, chemical, biological, physiological changes in, to the point where we know now through epigenetics that your thoughts and emotions are switching on and off certain genes. So I had to develop this entire process where I looked at my diet. I used to go out in the morning to a cattle trough because we were farmers in Glenamady. We didn't have ice tanks. We didn't know what cold plunging was, but I knew about cold immersion. And I would go out in the morning and jump into a cattle trough full of cold water. And you can imagine in the west of Ireland, as you know, Rebecca, on a January and it raining or frost, all I knew that if I could spend 6 or 7 minutes in that water, now we know about the shock proteins it releases and we know about it activates the parasympathetic. I just knew when I got out of that water, I felt different. When I started taking on yoga and meditation and slowing down. And the last piece was when I deeply started to look at the relationship I had with myself. No green juice can alkalize a toxic self-image. You can drink all the green juice in the world. You can eat all the inflammation-lowering food in the world. You can do all the meditation in the world. You can go to a psychologist all you want. But if that inner voice that's playing in your head 24/7 is toxic, if it's saying, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, if it's filled with shame or guilt or fear, I'm afraid all the health stuff doesn't work. So once I got through, was able to balance my nervous system, once I learned to sit still, I became aware that I was constantly kicking the shit out of myself every day. I was saying horrible things about myself. When something good happened, I'd dismiss it. And the minute something bad or I made a mistake, I would amplify it and use it as ammunition to attack myself. So the greatest gift I give myself, I stopped attacking myself. And I started listening to someone called Louise Hay every single day. Now you can imagine 15 years old, you're living in the west of Ireland, you don't stick your head above the parapet, but play yourself down. And suddenly I started to say to someone, I'm an infinite being filled with an infinite capability. I attract abundance easily. People thought I was bananas. But That's how we're meant to speak to ourselves, because you have infinite ability.
Yeah.
You are a mystery. You are a miracle of science. You are capable of all love. You are deserving of all greatness, and you can attract abundance. But the question is, do you believe it? Because if you don't believe it, you can't do any of those things. And when I started listening to those affirmations, I realized two things. One was I couldn't say nice things to myself. And B, I actually thought it was wrong. I thought it's wrong to say these things. Repairing that caustic, toxic relationship with myself, where I can be kind to myself, even when I'm down or when I'm angry, or I can be kind to myself. I can look myself in the mirror and be proud of who I am. That's the turning point for us all.
I think when you talk about the self-criticism, and I loved that in your I am, I can, I will book about the inner voice, I think there's a big underestimation of how much that is a threat to the nervous system. And that signals danger, like something we would stereotypically call dangerous. Same with that shame, that constant shame, like you say, I'm not good enough. Why did I drop that? Why haven't I leaner? Why am I more muscly? You know, it's constant all day, little micro pockets of shame. And I loved this section in the book. It says every single one of us has an inner voice. It is a powerful tool that shapes our perceptions, decisions and beliefs. Whether we're aware of it or not, our inner voice is not just commenting on the world around us. It's also directing our awareness, our attention, and impacting our decisions. So when we understand its origins, we recognise its influence and actively working on improving and enhancing it, we can cultivate a more positive and empowering inner self-talk that can help us navigate life's challenges with greater resilience and well-being. And I think that there, if more people just put a focus on that around one of the key pieces of the regulation puzzle, we'd be making huge strides.
Massive. You know, the words we use, as you said, trigger our nervous system because our nervous system is responding to what we say. But also they shape our subconscious beliefs. So if you're said, I'm not good enough, it's hard to find someone to fall in love with. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's very hard to have money. That's a belief system. And ultimately, your subconscious programs are like your destination that you put into Google Maps. So if you type in the square in Ballinasloe and I leave down, and that's imprinted into my Google Maps, then no matter what turn I take between Dublin and Ballinasloe, it's going to keep rerouting me. Our subconscious programs are the same, Rebecca. Once I hold a belief about myself and what I'm capable of, then no matter what happens in my life, I will reroute. And that's what we call a self-sabotage. When something bigger, when something amazing opens up in front of us, we manipulate the story and we end up back where we believe saying, well, I knew that wouldn't work out. The words you're saying are having an instant reaction, an instant activation within the body, good or bad. But more importantly, the words we use are shaping our deepest subconscious programs. And once we hold a deepest subconscious program, then the conscious mind can only operate by using the things that match its deepest beliefs. So we don't even see the opportunities. And that's where self-sabotage comes from. Self-sabotage isn't a negative thing. It's your subconscious programs trying to keep you within the limits of your beliefs so you don't get hurt.
And it's interesting when you look at that, because the nervous system loves that predictable, familiar. So even if that's something quite toxic you were doing, it's still predictable and familiar. And the nervous system likes that. So that familiar hell. And I think we often think it's self-sabotage, but it's also that protective mechanism. But when we can get that into our heads, it's much easier to be rational and think, of course I keep snacking, scrolling. Of course I can't stop the fags. It's familiar. It's very familiar and that feels very safe. So once you can smash through that glass ceiling, then you're on to a winner. But it's the first steps, and that's what I'm going to ask you next, them first steps to smashing through the glass ceiling. How do you go about that when you're so used to saying, I'm the person that has no control over sugary foods. Oh, I hate the cold. I couldn't be jumping into an ice bath. Oh, I love my comforts. I don't like to run. I don't like to do anything like stay home. How do you push through them, that identity you've built, but also them limiting beliefs that you've repetitively done for maybe decades?
Yeah, one of the best ways I've heard is from Joe Dispenza. He says, in order to change your personal reality, you got to change your personality. So if there's something in your life you want to change, you got to change who you are. I don't like cold water means I want to stay the same. So You have to be willing. Now, firstly is we can get addicted, as you said, to the chemicals and hormones of stress. So they're highly addictive. And not only are they addictive, but what we know is when we obey the subconscious programs, when we fulfill an addiction, the brain doubles down by giving us dopamine. And most people, think of a morning where, you haven't had your coffee, you're just dying for a cup of coffee, and suddenly you take that sip. Most people would say that, they feel better straight away. Well, it takes caffeine 45 minutes to get into your system. So that hit that you just got has nothing to do with what's in the cup. And in fact, I did a test once where we had people in coffee shops. We used to give them free coffee just for feedback, but it was never coffee. It was just substance. There was no caffeine in it. And what the coffee shop was trying to prove was they didn't need caffeine, because caffeine is the most expensive thing for a coffee shop. They could sell people milk that smelled like caffeine, and it triggered the dopamine receptors, and people didn't know the difference. Same as when maybe on a Friday night you take that glass of wine and instantly you feel better. Nothing to do with that. I know lads that go in, and suddenly after 1 or 2 pints, they feel like they're on top of the world. But your 1 or 2 pints doesn't do anything. Like, it's dopamine. So not only are the chemicals of stress addictive, but when we fulfill our expectation, when we open the bag of crisps, when we open the bottle of wine, we are now getting a hit of dopamine. I'm saying that because I want you to know behavioral change is hard. You don't change the behavior. You have to change who you are. And that's difficult. It means you'll start to feel a bit nervy because you're not getting the dopamine. It might mean that you'll have some withdrawal symptoms. And that's where you have to love yourself enough to say, no way, I ain't going back. Because nobody is coming to save you. Nobody, I'm going to say that again. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody can save you. Nobody can fix you. Nobody can heal you. You got to do the work. And what's the work? The work is, firstly, a willingness to be uncomfortable. A willingness to ask, what are my deepest stories? A willingness to ask, how might I be potentially holding myself back? Then when you start to embrace the discomfort, don't worry about the science behind a cold water immersion. That's too detailed. Just get into it. Be uncomfortable. Get into the sauna. Go and have a walk. Be uncomfortable. And what's going to happen is suddenly you're walking. Heck, I'm walking. I'm in a sauna. Now you begin to turn up as different. So to change your personality, you got to change your biology, your chemistry, you got to change the neurons firing in your brain, you got to change your frequency. So in my events, I get people up and they're shaking, they're dancing, they're moving. People who say, I don't dance, I don't shake, I don't do this. The old you doesn't. And as long as you live within the limits of the old you, then you'll only ever have what the old you had. So you have to become a different person. And that's the challenge. So it's a willingness to be uncomfortable. And it's a willingness to let the old go. It's a willingness to stop telling yourself that story. Just stop it. Stop that story. And I know that's harder than it sounds, but this isn't easy. And I'll be the first person to say, what's easy is stay in bed. Don't go for the walk. Don't get in the cold tank. Eat the crisps. Drink the wine and stay where you are. That's easy. But what that leads to is a life of regret. So there's a lovely expression that says, choose your hard. So the easy life leads to the massive hard, which is a life of regrets. The many hard decisions about getting up, going for a walk, speaking kinder to yourself, they might seem hard now, but it becomes easy because you have no regrets.
I think it's interesting as well when you look at that comfortable lifestyle people say when they don't push themselves too hard with exercise, they stay in their house a lot. And on the outside, you think, aren't they living a lovely, cushy life? Isn't that so cushy, not lovely? But then you also think to yourself, hold on now, when adversity hits and they're not used to getting outside their comfort zone, my God, would it hit you hard? And I understand when people say, I have a couple of friends at the weekend did a 60-kilometre run down in Kerry, off trail, and everyone said they're mental. Why would they put their bodies through it? And I was completely understand why they could, because once you can do that, now that's obviously an extreme example that isn't for everyone, but what's your example of that? And if you can do that and push yourself continuously outside their comfort zone, which they did the last year training for it, they ran hail, rain or snow. One of them ran the 60, actually she did 100k with a broken toe. Once you can push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone, as I said, in your way, that might be for you getting into the ice bath for 1 minute. That's teaching yourself, I can do this, I'm true to my word, and your identity does change. You do then label yourself as, oh, actually, I am the person that hikes. I am the person that directly says something in a conversation, and I don't avoid conflict. You know, the more you practice it, the more it becomes your identity. So that's so true. Like, your personal reality becomes your personality. And I love that you always are very good at articulating your examples of that. Like, the cold exposure has always worked for you. You were a former boxer. You're always pushing yourself outside the zone that you could now. Gerry Hussey's doing well for himself, and Gerry could say, do you know what? I'm going to sit tight now, and I'm not going to do too much, and I'm going to take an early retirement, and that'll be me lot. But every day instead, you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, ultimately, and pushing for me is like, you know, taking up yin yoga 4 or 5 years ago. So I was that guy who loved extreme sport. And then Miriam started bringing me to yin yoga, 90 minutes. And in the 90 minutes, you do 5 poses. And I said to her, like, and what are we going to be doing? Sitting around doing nothing until you experience yin yoga.
That's actually an excellent example of also pushing yourself outside the comfort zone. When you have to do the opposite of the 60k run, you have to be still.
And that's the point I'm making. So for me, even changing my diet, because I said, well, I like that food, but it was no good for me. I used to drink, a lot of tea. I used to take 3 spoons of sugar in every tea. And Miriam said, you got to give up that sugar, but I like it. Well, like, what's it doing to you? So I eat anti-inflammation food. I've changed my palate completely. I remember the first time when we got married and Miriam came home one day. She was after buying all this shopping and we're packing away. I'm looking at things like, like, I don't know, like cheese seeds and
kale.
Yeah, kale and aubergines and like
stuff you wouldn't have in Genimati.
No, spices and turmeric and like. And I remember I packed it all away. I said to her, where's the food? Now I can't eat the food I used to eat. I don't crave it. I crave nuts, seeds, herbs, berries, turmeric, ginger, cinnamon. This is the food we're meant to eat. So the comfort zone for me was sometimes as simple as, I'm going to give this new diet a chance. I'm going to slow things down. Like, meditation is the one thing that everybody knows they should be doing, but they don't really do it because it's too hard. Imagine sitting still, listening to music is too hard. Too hard. Are you serious? So it's being uncomfortable. And why meditation is hard for people is we want to be good at things quickly. Meditation is going to make you face all your distraction. It's going to make you realize that your nervous system is dysregulated. Meditation is the greatest gift you can give yourself, but my God, it's going to make you uncomfortable. And if you can sit in the discomfort of meditation with just awareness and not respond to it, and not need to heal the nervous, not need to feed the nervous system, and the brain says, get out of here, get out of here. You say, no, I'm not getting out of here. This is wrong. This isn't working. No, it is working. Now you learn that the thinking voice in the brain is separate to a thing called the observer self. The observer self is awareness, is consciousness. So we can have a thought, but we don't have to reply. We can have an emotion, we don't have to attach to it. So when I sit in meditation, my mind is full of all types of crazy thoughts. But what I also have is this now ability to say, isn't that a mad thought? Why would I be thinking that? And I slowly let my brain realize that it is not in control anymore. My observer self is in control. And I get to choose the emotions and the thoughts I attach to, and I choose which ones I let go. That is the discomfort. So running up mountains, getting fit, getting strong, cold water immersion, that's amazing. But a lot of people can do that. And there's too many people using extreme sport as a painkiller. We sometimes have to go the other way. So the guy that's after doing 14 high roxes and 14 triathlons in 2 days, sit down and meditate and see how we get on. Now, the people who are experts at meditation, maybe they need to get out and do the high rocks. It's the combination. So when I say about getting outside your comfort zone, it's recognizing the gym stuff or the extreme stuff comes easy, but I need to do meditation. Or some people are great at yin yoga and meditation, but they actually need to get out and exercise.
Yeah.
So it's that balance. That's what I mean.
And it's recognizing as well, what's your hard? Like for me, I can go do the marathons, triathlons, and I enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy it. But the meditation, when I first started the practice, was extremely anxiety inducing because it wasn't familiar to me. I didn't like being still. I labelled myself as lazy if I was still. I had guilt, shame. So I knew that's exactly what I need to do more of, was the meditation. So, because the voice was saying to me, stop it now. You're one of them ones the meditation doesn't work for. Rebecca, now you can just quit that. So I thought, okay, this is definitely something I need to practice. And it's still the thing in my day that I love and hate. I love it most of the time now, but at the beginning, it was the part of the day I thought, here we go again. It's going to get crazy because it was different. And I loved what you said earlier on about you now really find the whole foods palatable. I think a lot of people look at people when they say that, they think, but that's just them. But you actually, your taste buds physically change the more familiar that food becomes. So if you said to me back in 2013, I had huge sugar cravings. Sugar was on the mind all the time. And I thought, Becca and Gerry Hussey, the likes of him, able to eat that whole foods. How does he do it? And now I'm the very same. I'd enjoy that food more because it's familiar. Yeah. And it's the thing that you're like, I associate it with good things. Yeah. Whereas in the past, when your nervous system is dysregulated, when you're in fight or flight, when you're stuck in survival, of course you want the quick sugary foods and you want that quick bit of dopamine. And it's only now I'm really beginning to understand that dopamine mechanism and how it's kind of different for everyone. Like, what's your thing in the day where you're like, I couldn't go without it? Like you said, the coffee, the sugary bar. What is it in your day that's you're kind of the scrolling? And I think that's what's happening. We're living in this quick dopamine society and we almost need to recalibrate and say, how do I make myself enjoy the walk again, enjoy reading the book again? Because if you're so used to the cheaper dopamine from the scrolling and the sugar, then things are really boring. The walk, but geez, you'd love the walk and the reading when you're doing less of the cheap dopamine. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really interesting area to explore for a lot of people because, again, it's an avoidance tactic of always, I need the coffee to function, or I need that, Or
it's a simple, like, a big thing that was a big game changer for me was I used to be watching television, and while I was on television, I was on the phone.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds so simple, but just watch television with no phone. Watch television, give yourself the gift of 1 hour of just watching television with your feet up and don't go near your phone. I bet most people find that difficult. And you say, well, I just need to check. No, you don't need it. The world's not going to end. No one's going to die. Stop telling yourself I need to check it. So what I would say to people is, even if you can't get to the point of meditation, stop double jobbing.
Yeah.
If you're eating your dinner, just eat your dinner. If you're having a cup of tea, just a cup of tea. If you're watching television, just television. We think that multitasking is great. And maybe women pride themselves on multitasking. It's the enemy of excellence. The ability to be present to one thing at one time is actually what high performance is built on. Even look at little moments in your day. Go to the bathroom. Don't bring your phone. Sounds so simple, but watching TV, don't have your phone. When you're eating your meal, don't have your phone. So do one thing at one time. I drive Miriam mad because she prides herself on multitasking. And I'm like, one thing, one time. And I'm going much slower. And like, I'm eating my dinner. She's trying to talk to me about work or something. I'm not. And it looks like I'm going slower. But at the end of the day, she's like, how did you get all that done? I'm like, because I wasn't distracted.
Yeah. But that's like when you're focused on a task and you're doing just the one task. Like, I would heavily time block my day. And when I'm doing a task, I'm so immersed in it. The phone's on airplane mode. But if I had the phone notification in the background, I wouldn't be very productive in the task. So it's very interesting how, as you say, we've actually, as a society, we multitask all the time. And it just leads to such, I suppose, you're a jack of all trades, master of none at the end of the day. You've done
Exactly.
bits and bobs. You've not completed the loop on any task as well, which is quite stressful. When you have a load of tabs open in your brain, you're never actually looking at one tab, complete it next. That's quite a dysregulating thing as well. So that, like you say, that's like the beginning of you being able to meditate. It's them mindful moments of just eat the meal, drink the tea. And I'm telling you, watching a TV program without picking up your phone, that's a good little experiment to do.
Yeah, it is.
See where you're at.
Yeah, or simple, get a tennis ball. This is how I started my meditation journey. Go into a room with nothing else in the room and bounce the tennis ball nice and slowly 100 times. Then put a red dot on the tennis ball. Bounce the tennis ball and don't take your eye off the red dot. See if you can bounce the tennis ball for 5 minutes without getting distracted. So sometimes we need activity to bring us into the gateway. So find something. So firstly, reduce the moments of distraction in your life, and then become really good at finding one simple thing that is just active enough to keep you busy, but there's no stress to it. There's no consequence to it, so you can relax while you're doing it.
Yeah.
So all of those things are your gateway into living more stillness in a daily life.
Yeah. And for that person that is avoiding the stillness and they're listening to this and they realize that and there's a recognition, how do they acknowledge when that voice in your mind says, this is a waste of your time? Your productivity is your self-worth. And every time they try to go into the stillness, they never really can be present in the stillness because they don't let their mind slow down. How do them people, I'm thinking of specific people, how do they push through that?
Yeah, we mistake busyness and productivity. I work with some of the greatest sports people and business people on the planet, highly productive, and they meditate once or twice a day. If you wake up in the morning, you should meditate for 15 minutes. If you wake up in the morning and you don't have 15 minutes to meditate for 30 minutes. We think that being distracted is productivity. That's just busy. Busy is the enemy of excellence. There is no science to say that meditating negatively impacts productivity. Yin yoga, being still, is one of the greatest gifts you can give to build strength in your body. Calming the mind and learning to control and activate the observer self is one of the greatest things we can do for mental clarity. So when we think of all the energy that we give completing tasks, most of that energy is just all over the shop. So productivity and high performance has nothing to do with busyness. It's focus, efficiency, and execution. So the more you train your mind, the more you become free from distraction, the more we learn to meditate, is the more productive we get.
I had a friend the other day and she said she's in a 9-to-5 job and she says, I'd be finished my work at lunchtime if I put my mind to it, but I actually dragged the task out. She said, I dragged the task out because it'd be bad if I left early. I couldn't do that. And I just thought, a lot of people are probably in the same boat.
Of course.
And then you're obviously training yourself to not be productive. And then that seeps into the rest of your life as well, that you're kind of dragging out everything. And I thought, in a world that book, the 4-hour work week, if you came to the point slowly and gradually where you were being more mindful, you were doing the tasks all in, no distractions, you would be way more productive than you would think. And if you team that with the mantra of progress over perfection, you weren't doing it to a high level that's going to stop you, keep it going, your productivity would completely change. And then you'd feel absolutely fine with rest because you'd understand this rest allows me to be sharper at other points of the day. And I think even just rationalizing that is important.
Yeah. I did a study with a corporate business a few years ago, and we got all the employees, 400 employees, to track every day, honestly, confidentiality, how productive, unproductive. So they tracked all the productive hours. So hanging around, walking, thinking, doodling, checking Facebook, that all of that was linked. And they proved that if they were efficient and organized, they could finish work at lunchtime on a Thursday. So the CEO said, right, let's put this to the test. If I can have you focused and organised and we can get through meetings quick and we stop the didder and dadder and we stop the messing, if we can clear the projects by lunchtime Thursday, you're all out here. That's probably 4 years ago. That company has never worked longer than lunchtime on a Thursday, and they're accelerating and growing year in, year out. But they've taught everybody to meditate. They do activation sessions in the morning to energize. They've had everybody go on a mindful course. They are one of the most highly efficient organizations on the planet. And they all finish at lunchtime on a Thursday. Imagine that. That is a waste of time. I hate inefficiency. Whether it's inefficiency with money or inefficiency with energy, I hate it. And when we learn to be efficient with our time, with our energy, people say, I have no time for the gym. Now we find time. I have no time. So there's 168 hours in every week. Everybody listen to this. I'll invite you to write down where those hours go. So you'll quickly say, well, I work 50 hours a week. Brilliant. I sleep 7, 8, 56. Brilliant. Now you're on, 106 hours. Now we're going well. Well, I spend 10 hours a week cooking. Now we're on 116 hours. Fantastic. What else do you do? Well, I bring the kids. Most people can get to about 130 hours. And then they're like, I have the fucking clue where the time goes. I guarantee you, there is a full day going missing in everybody's calendar because they say, I only watch TV for half an hour. It's not a half an hour. So one of the things I ask people to do is identify where the 168 hours goes. And most people, Rebecca, get to 120, 130, and they've no idea.
What a brilliant activity to do, though, to recognise the amount we do sink and drain into things that are no good at all. And I'd say the more you track that, then obviously, the more you're going to get way more efficient because you're like, I'm not going to sink my time into any more of this scrolling. Or actually the other day, the kids are playing with the neighbour. Sure, I'll get a bit of work done, But I was half listening for the kids. I wasn't.
Of course.
And the next day, my business manager said, did you get that done? And I said, and she listed out all these things. I said, oh no, I didn't get one of them things done. Not a thing. And she said, what did you do in replacement? And I could barely tell her. So it just shows, when you're trying to multitask.
Yeah.
Double job.
But here'd be a good question. How many times did you check your phone in that period?
There you go.
Probably way more than you'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the distraction I'm talking about. When we're distracted all the time, and even for me, I have the great gift that I get to work from home most days. I don't have to travel, I don't have to commute. But that's challenging as well. So it's called context shifting. So I'm on a call with you and doing a podcast. Excellent. Then I go down and roll around the floor with my kids. That sounds good. Then I come up and I'm going through my VAT bill with my accountant to get me a shock there. Then I'm going downstairs and mopping the floors. Then I'm coming back up and actually I'm drained. So what we should do is, like you said earlier, time chunk. So I'd be better off saying, right, I'm working 6 hours today, focus, lock the door, and I'm done. I love this idea of going up and down, and I always make a cup of tea, and it's actually total. So I'm in the same trap as somebody. So people who are working from home, it's great because we don't have a commute, but we need that commute at times.
Yeah.
We need to detach. So you're better off trying to set up a working block with the doors closed, you're totally focused. And for some people, if you can afford it, you're better off maybe hiring some type of space or some communal working space, or nearly go and work in someone else's house. Because I go down and I've a half an hour before my next call, and I go down to have a walk or something, and I see the floor, I give that a quick mop while I'm here.
Yeah.
Or I'll put this on. Or I hang up the washing while I'm here. And I'm just, my brain doesn't know, is this guy working? Is he at home? Is he doing the laundry? What the hell is that? But that has a massively, it's called context shifting. And when you're shifting your focus of emotions, and it just kills us. So it's a message for people working from home like me. While it is a gift, it also has a challenge. And that can drain our energy, and it can really diminish our productivity as well.
It's interesting. I'm in the very same boat, and it's 2.5 years now I'm working from home full time, which I love in so many respects. But it's only really hit me in the last few months that actually you do need the change of scenery once or twice a week to go to a co-work space or somewhere else. Otherwise, I found you're nearly in the house the whole time. And like you say, there's no, the lines get very blurred. And you say, I'll go up to the office now when the kids are gone. And it just, you never really get full work done or deep rest either. So it's important that I think a lot of people are dealing with that as well, that haven't went back to offices, that need to reassess, like, how have I gotten used to certain patterns that aren't serving me at all when I'm trying to both be a parent at home and work from home.
Exactly. Well, it's the key thing. Efficiency, context shifting, time management, as simple as all these things sound, if you want to have more energy in your life, you get on top of those things, it really adds, great value to what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's the piece of regulation as well, that there is that level initially of, you do have to be quite planned in how you spend your time. Otherwise you'll say, I'll do the meditation later. It needs to be a level of, I time block this, I do this at a certain time, I habit stack this. And then it becomes, you have this automatic schedule that you find, I'm not as stressed anymore because I know what's next. I'm not saying, I'll do the workout now tonight at some point. And that's really important.
And that's just on that, Rebecca, that's where accountability is so important. Like, one of the things that Miriam did this year was she joined a running club. And I used to run by myself, and I used to be finding it kind of good. And then my knee started giving me trouble, and I wasn't enjoying it. And I said, I'm a bad runner, I'm getting old. Then I give up running. And Miriam joined this running club. She said, you should come, it's great fun. And my knees are gone. And so I went down anyway, first night, and I said, I'll try it one night for Miriam and I'll come back. Next thing we started having crack, and it was great fun. And next thing I realised that a couple of kilometres done, I was so busy chatting, there was no sore knees. And now I love going down, because it's a total, when I used to be running by myself, I'd be thinking about work, I'd be thinking about a podcast, I'd be giving out to myself. Now I'm down there. So with COVID, we've all kind of retracted into our houses a bit more. We tend to do the online session or the online course. I'm telling you now, there's nothing more important than having a group of people that you meet regularly, face to face, human contact, whether it's a running club, a yoga club, a coffee club, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
But people that will hold you accountable to being there. So what I do is I've started to say now, I'll take some of these running sessions. Why? Because I'll have to go then.
Yeah.
I've never regretted going, but there's been often days gone out the door, I don't need this tonight, but I do. So even if it's a friend you meet for a chat once a month, how many times do you say to a friend, I'll meet for coffee, and you never do? Meet the friend, join a club, get stuck into something, learn something new, but get an accountability buddy and say, right, I'm signing you up to Rebecca, I'm signing you up to Deepak's meditation. And you're like, I'm allergic to that. Okay, but so am I. We're going to go. And we're going to go for a glass of wine after it for the crack. So it's not really about the meditation. It's about, I get to spend time with you. We get to have a laugh at each other, and maybe we'll learn to meditate.
Yeah.
And that's the soul. So COVID has given us the ability to do everything online. So all of these habits that I talked about become easier when you're doing them with a friend, when there's accountability, when you're doing them as part of a group. So whether it's a running club, a GA club, or an acting club, a drama club, a bridge club, it doesn't matter. Get out. It's too comfortable to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Netflix doesn't give a damn for you. And I'm sorry if I've upset anyone from Netflix. It doesn't care about you. But the person down the local club might care about you.
Yeah.
And they might be delighted to see you. And you might come home feeling energized. So accountability and connection are so, so important.
It's funny you're saying that now. I think universally, this is only coming up now, 5 years after the start of COVID, when people are realising, wow, I've been in a bit of hibernation there the last 3, 4, 5 years. And I only thought the other day, I was running a lot on my own there 2 years ago. I trained for the Dublin Marathon on my own. And a few months ago, I joined the local running club, and I was like, oh my God, why did I put myself through that? When I could have been having the crack, I could have been afraid. It's so much easier to run when you're chatting to someone.
Yeah.
And now as well, I said, okay, what's a great club locally to me? The CrossFit club. Do I particularly want to do CrossFit? A bit, not too much, but I certainly want to be part of the community.
Yeah.
And we know that we thrive when we're part of the community, but we've really normalised, like, Do you remember pre-COVID, people would be like, oh, I'm doing that pottery class. I'm doing that painting class.
Yeah.
Have you an interest in pottery or painting? Oh, no, not at all. But it's good crack because the ladies have a glass of wine after, or we go to the pub after, or we go for a walk, whatever. That's the key.
Yeah, it is key. And even now, because I live in Dublin, it's very different to the countryside. But people on by road, if you listen to this, no offence, but like, you nearly need to be invited into people's houses. Or even me now, if someone came to the door, I'd be like, what are you doing in my house?
Yeah.
Where I grew up in an environment where we were always visiting, but and somebody could come in and visit and your house could be upside down and you wouldn't care and they wouldn't care. We have lost some of that connection, that cup of tea, that open conversation, where someone's coming in, have to spend the day cleaning the house, have to figure out what food they like. Like, why do we complicate that? So I think Ireland on a whole has to relook at its idea of community and connection and friendships.
Oh, huge. And when I think back in the 90s, I grew up in the countryside initially and in Mullingar, and we used to have Conor Moore, Conor sketches. He was my neighbour. So we'd be in and out of each other's houses the whole time. And that was very normal. Then we moved to an estate. It was the same thing. You wouldn't even knock on the door. You kind of just go into the kitchen of the other person and you say, hey, you get fed there. It was very normal. And now I'm finding with my own kids, but also from me, there's more of a cautious attitude about it. But also I noticed my mother has new neighbours in the last year and they're from India and my kids are mad about their kids. So there's this sense of community that reminds me of the 90s where my kids walk in, the mammy sits them down, knows them well now, the kids play together, and the same happens whenever we're next door. And I thought, oh my God, the level of connection and community I feel because of them neighbours is unreal. But do I have that as much as I would previously? Definitely not. Do I want more of it? Absolutely. It's just so enriching to have that for your kids and for you, that you have other parents you know well and your kids are connected, rather than dropping someone to a house and you don't really know the parents. We just need that community again.
But it's also, go back to what we talked about earlier, about people now live in a world where we have to almost pretend to have everything together. We need people in our life that we can call into for a cup of tea or go for a walk with and be okay falling apart in the company of that person.
Yeah.
We have to have people in our life that can meet us where we're at that moment, without judgment, without criticism. Real, open, honest conversations. Not where we have to uphold an image or we have to peddle a certain story or how things great, how's work, oh fantastic, how the kids, and two people there fucking dying inside because everything's gone top it up. Oh fantastic, yeah, great, and so almighty, yeah, great. Like, it's like fucking table tennis. How are you? I'm great. How are you? How are you? It's like, I'm not great actually.
Recently I was at the school gate and I said to one of the girls in passing, one other parent, I said, how are you? And she said, I'm not great at all actually. And I was like, what?
What do I do now?
What do I do now? An Irish person, you would never expect a negative response. Like, somebody might be dying and they say, I'm grand.
Yeah,
and you know, geez, okay. And you run away. You kind of run away.
Yeah.
But it's like, being able to do that. I went for a walk recently with a friend and she caught me on a day I was emotional. I just cried the whole walk.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything, but she was able to hold space for that. And it wasn't weird, or I wasn't saying, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's having them few connections, like.
Yeah. And you know, if you bring this full circle, we spoke about a lot, but if you're listening to this podcast now and you're beginning to examine your level of distraction or dysregulation, or you realize whether it's emotional eating or whether it's addiction or scrolling, or you're just stressed, or you just realize I've deep sadness inside of me, be enough of a friend to yourself to allow yourself to say that without having to say, what have you to be sad about? Because we say things to ourselves like, I'm deeply sad. What have you to be sad about? It could be worse. So the first great friend you have to have is a friend to yourself. We try to pretend that we have it all together. And we keep it all suppressed because we're afraid to fall apart. I fall apart regularly because we're not meant to hold it together all the time. So the relationship we have with ourselves is simply the most important thing in our lives. Be enough of a friend to be able to say to yourself, I need help, or I've had enough, or I'm angry, without judgment, without criticism. Once you can put your hand up and say, I need help, I need support. Once you can be confident or courageous enough to say, this is stopping. We don't always need to know what the next step is.
Mm.
Sometimes we just need to say, this isn't it. I've had enough of this. I've had enough of being this. I've had enough of this emotion. I've had enough, and I'm going to make a change. So listen to how you speak to yourself. It should be full of kindness and compassion and love. It should be free from judgment, criticism, or comparison. And if you're listening to this podcast, ask yourself, now that I've heard what they're saying, because Rebecca and Gerry can sit here and we can share all the science in the world and we can talk about, but here's a question. If you're listening to this now, if you were to put your hand on your heart and listen to that deep inner child that is still within you, looking at the way you live, looking at the things you prioritize, listening to the things you say to yourself, experiencing the amount of happiness you experience or not, what is the wish that that child has for you? And would you be willing to take the first step? And that first step, as we said, Rebecca, might be ring up a friend and say, can I go for a walk? I want to chat to you about something. I want to run something by you. Maybe that first step is going to the fridge tonight, take out all the food that makes you feel unwell and throw it in the bin. Maybe that first step is putting on a pair of runners right now and going out for a walk for 200 meters. Maybe that first step is realizing that you still hold anger towards somebody. And now you're realizing that as long as you're angry towards that person, the only person that's getting hurt is you. Maybe the first step is just forgiveness. Maybe the first step is stop going back to the past. The past has nothing more to give you. Maybe it's time to take a deep breath and say, I am letting that story go. Or maybe what's troubling you is a worry about the future. So here's the gift. There is no future. It doesn't exist. And half the time we spend so much time worrying about something that never happens. So let the future go. Let the past go. Let the future wait. Listen to your deepest heart. If you truly loved yourself, what is it your heart and soul is asking for now? And all I'm asking is, would you love yourself enough to take a step? That doesn't have to be counselling straight away. It doesn't have to be running straight away, but a step. And if you can love yourself enough to take a step, and you take that one step, I promise you, the path begins to appear.
Mm-hmm. When you were saying all that, the cogs were moving in my brain, but also I remembered I went to your event before and you said, and it really struck me, you said that it's actually quite an easy thing to keep thinking of the past, and that keeps us stuck in the familiar, that repetitive narrative. And sometimes you have to reflect on that and just completely move away from it and say, I've done enough thinking and talking about that now. I'm going to keep moving forward. And it just struck me very profoundly at that time. You know, when you're in the right place at the right time, something hits you. And I think for many people, it's like we have to spend time letting go of the old narratives, because history only repeats itself if we keep focusing on the past, you know. So I think that's an amazing one. Gerry, where can everyone find you? Because I know after today, I'm going to be going back to your book, and I'm also going to be listening to this again, because there was a lot of things in this that were very, very helpful.
I have an event in Cork on the 21st of September. It's called Empowered. I'll talk about all we spoke about today and more. That's in the Venue Woods. So if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see there's tickets available for that. My Instagram page, and we have a series of new events being launched next year. We also have a retreat running in Clare in their Mad Hotel in October. All of this too is on my Instagram. So I try to give away good science and good information. I also try to create some videos that are uplifting and inspiring, and also I want to challenge people, but I also understand that some people just need love. And sometimes people need a kick in the arse, and sometimes they just need a hug. So I tried to create an Instagram page where there's a little bit of all that for everybody. Nobody's perfect. We are not robots. We are not machines. Some days Gerry's phenomenal. He's full of confidence. And then some days I'm just down in a hole, and that's okay. When I'm down in the hole now, I have the awareness to know, A, it's not going to last long, and B, I have the ability to get out of it. And that's what I'd love to share with the world. How you're feeling right now is perfectly okay. It is your story, and nobody can deny you of that. But where you are now is not where you have to stay. Where you are now is not your future. And what has brought you to this point, in many ways, is excellent because it got you here. But at any moment you choose, you can leave that behind. And you can write a whole new future. So I'll finish by quoting Dispenza again, where he says, we need to be inspired by a vision of the future and not a memory of the past. When we become so emotionally committed to an exciting future, and our excitement towards that future is more powerful than our pain of the past, then we automatically let go of the pain of the past. So in this one short, beautiful life, if you truly loved yourself, what would you be willing to do? What's the question you'd be willing to ask? What's the discomfort you'd be willing to set in if you knew that it would set you truly free? And I think that's a message that I ask myself every day. How can I set myself free?
That's a lovely note to finish on, Gerry. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I really hope this episode helped you or made something click. And if it did, please share it with a friend, or even better, drop it into the girls group chat. These conversations are so important to be having, and the more women who hear this, the better. If you want to dive a little bit deeper into female nervous system regulation, I'm running a free webinar in January where we go into the science and the practical steps you can start using straight away. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.